Hello everybody, Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report, Monday's edition. Happy to have you with us from beautiful Irvine, California today. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the weekend. Lots of breaking news, which we're going to cover all today. Lots of college football implications for those of you who are football fans, and lots of good things coming up in the NFL. Anyhow, let's get right to it. We have to start the show by paying our respects to Senator Bob Dole. Dole passed away over the weekend at the age of 98, among the most distinguished American senators to ever serve the country. Dole served us in World War II, was injured in Italy severely, came back, was a prosecutor in Kansas, became a representative, and ultimately a United States Senator. Dole ran against Bill Clinton for the presidency, obviously did not win that. And then he continued a distinguished career post his presidential run. I'm sure over the next coming days there'll likely be a ceremony for Senator Dole, likely to be in the Capitol Rotunda, funeral arrangements probably at Arlington National Cemetery. So a great American. We want to pay our respects to probably among the greatest of the greatest generation, Bob Dole, who's no longer with us at the age of 98. All right, now into some other news that has sort of politically happened over the weekend. You've been seeing sort of stories about this going on for a while, but Vice President Harris continues to have staff, basically leave. We're not inside the organization to tell you why it's happening, but we do know that her top communications people have left. More, according to press reports, there's more departures on the way, and it was characterized by one of the staffers as basically a sinking ship. Folks, to us, it's no surprise. We've been talking to you about the lack of credentials of the vice president for a long time. Everything she's been tasked to work on has been a miserable failure. We've documented most of that, and she's apparently not that well liked by the higher-ups in the Biden administration. Sure, they're going to give you the public persona that, oh no, everything's fine, she's this, she's that. Come on, folks. When they're doing things like, photoshopping her out of photos with Biden and Fauci, when word like this leaks out, again, this is not by accident. These staffers leaving, it really demonstrates that she's really in over her head and not qualified for the position that she's in. But, why is it so important? Well, you can see why it's so important. She's a heartbeat away from the presidency of Joe Biden, and Biden's not exactly a picture of health. So, again, we're just sort of reporting what's going on here, folks. It's not a surprise. Again, we've recommended that the Biden administration, shift directions, but they show no signs of it whatsoever. And with the vice president sitting at 28% approval rating, and the president somewhere from 36 to 40, it's not good. So we're just trying to get the news out to you there. I know everybody's got their opinions. Democrats seem to like the vice president, but independents and Republicans have walked away in droves. And when you look at what her track record is on the border and some of the clumsy statements that she says and just the overall lack of preparedness, it tells us that she's in way over her head. But having said that, well, I tell you one thing, it's enough to wish the president solid health over the next 3 years, because if something happened to him, my God, this country would really be in sad shape having her at the helm. All right, look, Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, has been basically complaining to the media that the press coverage is unfair. Get a load of that, folks. The reason that Joe Biden's approval ratings are in the tank, according to Ron Klain, chief of staff, is that he's not getting good press. Folks, the mainstream media is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. And they're saying, well, he's getting press coverage equivalent of Trump. No. 92, 93% of the stories on President Trump were negative. Biden's not even anywhere close to those levels. Biden's getting bad press because of his stupid-ass policies. and none more ridiculous than what he did with the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, here's a pipeline that could import 850,000 barrels of oil a day, clean, well-managed pipelines, brought in the proper way with all the safety, security in place. But no, Biden gets into office and he shuts it down. Then he has to go out and beg, for the Russians and OPEC to supply us with oil. It's one of the dumber things Biden's done in his presidency, among many. And obviously, with the U.S. having to now import oil from Russia and from certain OPEC places, prices were up. Okay, again, that's just an example, okay? But Klain basically is saying negative press coverage on Afghanistan, negative coverage on the economy, negative coverage on what's going on at the border. Well, the esteemed vice president might have something to do with that. So, I don't know, folks. It seems to me like he's getting fair criticism from the press and that Klain's just belly aching. Again, we wish it were a different story. I mean, no one, I don't think, ever could have imagined that when he came into office, just 10 or 11 months later, we'd be in the situation that we're in right now. But, it is what it is. So, they're going to have to deal with it. Again, I see no evidence whatsoever that Biden's going to trek to the center. He's continuing to push that far left-wing radical Build Back Better bill, and nothing seems to be changing. So, about the only thing that is going to be changing will be happening in 2022. But let's talk about some economic news here for just a minute. We got mixed news that came out on Friday. 210,000 jobs were created. Now, normally you would say, hey, that's a pretty good report. And it wasn't bad, but they were expecting 550,000 jobs. So obviously way below what the expectations were. However, the good news buried within the report is unemployment dipped down to 4.2%, which means a lot of people that wanted jobs got jobs. Obviously, it's a great area for workers right now. The labor force participation rate continues to hover around 61.8%. Okay, so no real change there. And then in a key demographic, folks, ages 25 to 54, prime working age, we're about 79% of people working in that age group. That's a pretty good number. So I say, it's mixed reviews, but overall, that number was fairly positive in my view. Now, a lot of economists panned it, said, no, we're not anywhere near where we need to be. And the truth is, we're still 3 million jobs short of where we were when the pandemic started. But the fact is that we got unemployment down to 4.2%. There's job openings all across the country. People that want a job can get a job. And filing for claims of first-time unemployment benefits have fallen. So, look, the stock market has reacted very favorably on a bounce-back day today. I mean, the Dow Jones, as of the airing of the show today, are up 600 points. The S&P 500 up almost 100 points. I mean, and you say, okay, well, why is this happening? Well, interest rates ticked down again. The 10-year note was hovering around 1.44. Excuse me. And mortgage rates came down. That's good news. It looks like, the Senate has averted a budget, showdown for right now. I mean, the government's not shutting down. It looks like they're probably going to work something out, extending it into February. But the main thing is, I think the market's reacting to the fact that the COVID variant doesn't appear to be as infectious or the health effects from it seem to be milder than the original COVID and then the Delta variant. Maybe that's factoring into the equation. And maybe it could just be a good old Santa Claus rally coming up towards the end of the year. But people are buying stocks hand and fist after a lot of volatility last week. So, crypto prices crashed over the weekend, and that money appears to be going right back into the stock market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a lot of companies were really doing well on their stock prices earlier today. So that's the good news from the economic point. But the Federal Reserve, again, it does look like, as we've been telling you for a long time, they are going to begin tapering those bond buying purchases. And that is the first step towards stopping that and then getting to a point where if inflation persists, the Fed will be raising rates in 2022. You know, you've got a lot of private forecasters right now saying that that inflation rate's going to come in 6%. Now look, there was some good news in that report. Wage gains in this country for workers, folks, it was running like 4.8%, which is great news. But boy, then when you add in the inflation factor running at 6%, basically workers are flat to actually losing a point. Because if your wage gains are less than inflation, it eats up your power of your purchasing power. So, mixed jobs report here. And like I said, we give the administration credit when credit's due. This is sort of a neutral one here. Some good things to like, some issues. But for right now, you know, that's where we are economically here in the United States. Now, politically, a couple things have happened over the weekend. And we've talked about this on the show at length. We gave you advice last week about Stacey Abrams getting into the Georgia Senate race on the Democratic side. She will be the Democratic nominee for governor. On the Republican side, Governor Brian Kemp, who was marred in controversy with President Trump throughout November and after the election, he's going to receive a primary challenge for Senator David Perdue. Perdue lost his election, his Senate seat in that runoff that they had in Georgia, being defeated by John Ossoff. What was sad about that, he actually beat Ossoff in the November election, but when they had the runoff, because Republicans didn't turn out at the level Democrats did, we lost 2 seats in Georgia. Well, now Perdue, who is a well-known political name in the state, is going to run against Brian Kemp. Folks, say what you want about Kemp, he beat Stacey Abrams when they ran the last time. Now you're going to have a situation where 2 Republicans, Perdue supposedly getting the endorsement of President Trump, and Kemp, who obviously is not, Trump's not one of his, he's not a big supporter. So now you're going to have 2 Republicans duking it out in a primary, and then you're going to have Stacey Abrams coasting as a Democrat. Obviously, Perdue has a right to run. I know Trump's not happy with Kemp. But look, folks, at the end of the day, calling it what it is, I think we got better things to do than to be fighting in a primary battle for governor in the state of Georgia. I really do. I mean, Perdue has a right to run. Look, we supported him in the election and in the runoff election, obviously. But to run up against Brian Kemp, over the single issue that Trump has a disagreement with him, it's really going to split the Republican Party in Georgia. So in my view, again, we'll see how it shakes out. I can't see anything good coming of this. Okay, let's play out a couple scenarios. Let's say Kemp holds off Perdue and wins the primary. Okay, is he going to be damaged by it? Probably yes. If Perdue triumphs and beats Kemp, then he's going to go up against Stacey Abrams. And boy, that'll be some race. Either way, whichever Republican emerges, it's going to be a high national focused race, because last time when Kemp beat Abrams, the vote margin I think was around 50,000 votes. And amazingly, she never conceded. Again, governor in hiding, I guess. But yeah, that's one we're going to keep a close watch on, because it's a big deal. Winning a governorship in a swing state, a purple state like Georgia, that's a big deal. Georgia used to be a red state. Now it's a purple state. All right, so on the House side, speaking of politics, the National Republican Congressional Committee is expanding the number of seats that they're going to target with the Democrats. They were targeting 55 seats. Now they're going to expand it all the way up to 70. Folks, if you're targeting 70 seats and these Biden policies continue the way he's doing it right now, you are going to see the bloodbath of bloodbaths next year. There's no way they could be targeting that many seats if there wasn't polling evidence suggesting vulnerability. And we're going to see it. Now, that seems a little aggressive from my blood. I thought maybe a swing somewhere in a 40-seat range would be good, but the fact that they're expanding their, quote, target list of seats, boy, and with all those Democratic retirements that are coming, and again, you just look at the policies that the House is voting on. They're bad policies. They're voting on stuff that the people are not concerned about, and they're not paying any attention to the stuff the folks are concerned about. And when you combine that with Biden's approval rating sub 40% in some cases, you're staring at a debacle coming up for the Democrats, plus the normal midterm shakeups. And the Dems got the House, they got the Senate and the presidency, and they're proving inept at every aspect of governance right now. So we'll keep an eye on that one for you. Now, let's turn to a couple other things here related to COVID and mandates. Again, judges around the country are striking down these vaccine mandates. All over the country, being struck down. So what does that communist in New York, Bill de Blasio, do? He implements a vaccine. Basically, he's telling private employers, you have to follow the federal vaccine mandate, and I think they're putting this into effect at the end of December, around December 27th or so, assuming a judge doesn't overrule that. But here again, the rest of the country's going in one direction, and then de Blasio in New York going in another, trying to force private companies into this. It's bad policy, folks. Again, agree or disagree on what people's vaccine status should be, to mandate that people get a jab, that seems un-American to me. And Omicron, the variant is now in 17 states here in the United States. So 17 out of 50 we have at present. Obviously too new to rate as far as the data goes. We don't have, not still early on in that aspect, but it's here. And, as a lot of people have been saying for a long time, and Ms. Walensky, she's in the Department of Health and Human Services. She's on the task force, basically one of the key advisors to President Biden, excuse me. She's basically saying this coronavirus is going to go from being a pandemic to an endemic. Basically, we're going to have to learn to live with this thing. The Democrat Party's goal of zero COVID, and we're going to wipe it out, that's not happening. You know it, I know it. It's going to be like the flu. We're going to have to learn to live with this thing because it's not going to be eradicated. And there'll be steps we're going to need to do to handle that. That's according to the administration. So they're finally waking up, smelling the coffee, and quitting misleading people, particularly their own party, into think we're going to get to COVID zero. That's not going to happen. But at least, you've got someone up higher in the administration who works with Fauci basically confirming this. And I don't want to say it validates a lot of the criticism made since the beginning of the Biden administration, but it sort of does. People have been saying, hey, look, we're not going to eradicate this, but we're going to learn to live with it. And whether it be through periodic vaccines, booster shots, you name it, it's looking more and more like that's how we're going to have to address this. So again, keep an eye on it, folks. I mean, that's stay safe, practice good practices. And again, we've advocated those to get shots, and booster shots were applicable, but consult your doctor. So let's give you some other political updates here. That $1.75 trillion climate and social spending bill, this debacle of a bill that never should see passage, Schumer's been trying to get that thing passed before Christmas. But there's a lot of open items on that bill. You still have senators in disagreement over the giveaway to the rich, which is the SALT deduction. That's the one that caps state and local taxes. High states, guys like Bob Menendez in New Jersey fought to include it. A bunch of people in the House included it. Why? Because their constituency are wealthy Democrats. That's why they included it. It's making a lot of senators uneasy, though. So they're trying to work through that. That's not resolved yet. Okay. Also, the immigration piece that's in that bill, the Senate parliamentarian has yet to rule on that. Plus, the CBO has yet to fully score it. And there are reports that if some of these programs got expanded beyond the years that they're in the program, this thing could end up doubling the cost to $4 trillion instead of $1.75 to $1.8. Folks, with Manchin opposed to it, Sinema questioning it, these issues with SALT, the parliamentarian, this thing is likely headed towards a January vote, not a December vote. And in my view, the longer it can be delayed, take the energy out of it, maybe it'll never pass. I mean, I still think some form of this bill will pass. Maybe it's a whittled down part. But the American people aren't for this stuff. They know what's in this thing, and they know it's not going to benefit their lives. So hopefully this monstrosity, which will only pass with Democratic votes, and that means Manchin and Sinema would have to vote for it. But hopefully this thing can get at least delayed into the new year, and then we'll see what happens with that. And along those lines, it's really interesting, folks. I looked at some surveys over the weekend. I couldn't believe what I was reading. 64% of Democrats now view socialism favorably. Think about that. 64% of Democrats viewing socialism favorably? On the Republican side, it's 15%. Now, nationally, the country as a whole, okay, both parties still approve of capitalism as the economic engine in the country, both Democrats and Republicans and independents by a wide margin. And it's been pretty consistent for the past decade, 59, 60% range. But to have that high a percentage of Democrats, wanting to embrace that, it shows you how far left this Democratic Party has become. It's not your father's Democratic Party anymore, folks. These people, the socialist tendencies in this party, it will take your breath away. And I was sort of shocked to see that. But it doesn't surprise me, because when you see all the issues happening in the country, people try to grab onto something. And let's face it, these far leftists, they're espousing policies that are socialistic policies. All you got to do, folks, is look around the world. It fails everywhere. And there's zero chance it would ever work here. So it's best that these bad ideas get snuffed out early, because you don't want to go anywhere near that situation. All right, couple other pieces here. We didn't talk a lot about the border yet today, but around the Rio Grande area, you're seeing a 163% spike in illegals encounters in Texas. That's a gigantic number, folks. And every time you get a film crew or a network crew goes down, it's the same story over and over. For the life of me, why the administration doesn't focus on this, it's just incredible. Well, we know why, because they continue to want people to come across. But at least the stay in Mexico policy, much to the chagrin of liberals, is being implemented by the Biden administration. Maybe that'll help slow it down. We'll see. Okay. And in sort of diplomacy, international news, the United States and the Biden administration announced that there's going to be a diplomatic boycott of the Olympics. We're not going to have to penalize our athletes like it's been done in the past. Thank God for that. And at the end of the day, does anyone really care whether diplomats attend or don't attend the Beijing Games? I guarantee you the Chinese Communist Party could not care less. Okay. So, those things are happening right there. We're going to keep an eye on it as these situations develop. But I got to tell you, folks, as we come into the holiday season here, again, are you seeing any progress on the main issues out there? I'm not. I mean, he still has a border that's out of control. You got the Russians with 160 some odd thousand troops on the Ukraine border. You got China threatening Taiwan. You got the Chinese military expanding, putting bases in Africa. You got inflation running 6%. You got energy prices. Again, I filled my tank up the other day, $5.15 a gallon here in Southern California, and prices are up across the country. People are concerned about that, and yet what do? They focus on this crazy Build Back Better bill, complain to the media that they're not getting good coverage when their propaganda arm manages it. Unbelievable. So hopefully, as we've been saying, get some common sense talked into this administration, move to the center, get away from these hard left policies. Folks, it was so embarrassing. I'll close on this one. Across the country, we've seen these smash and grab robberies. We've talked about it on the show quite a few times. That rocket scientist, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, comes out and says, well, I don't see any evidence of smash and grab robberies. Wake up and smell the coffee, darling. It's happening all across the country. San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. Folks, this is a problem, and retailers are coming out and declaring it a problem. But that wizard, AOC, oh no, according to her, it's not really a problem. It just makes you laugh at times if it wasn't so serious. But it is, and that's what we're having to deal with here. So, we're going to sum it up as follows. The Biden administration, if they continue on this track, Again, look at the evidence, folks. 70 seats now being targeted in the House of Representatives. And if things continue to go this way, the Senate's going to be in play too. So I know, folks, we're still in 2021. We've got a lot of issues, but this country will survive it. I know people are saying, how can I survive 3 more years of Biden? Look at what the alternative is right now. The best anecdote for this is a Republican Senate and a Republican House. Get rid of Pelosi and all those liberal Democrats that are passing all these insane far left-wing bills, and let's get back to get this country in the center lane, not in the far left lane. Okay, folks, we'll be back for the show tomorrow on Tuesday. Thanks for viewing and listening on the podcast today. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow.